Joining me now is David Jolly, MSNBC political analyst and former Republican congressman who is no longer affiliated with the party. Holly McCall, editor-in-chief of the Tennessee Lookout, and Reverend Mark Thompson, civil and human rights activist and host of the Make It Plain podcast. And Mark, I think you were with Justin Jones. You were walking with this crowd of supporters that also did include Gloria Johnson and Justin Pearson. Just talk about the atmosphere and the historic moment that you were witness to this afternoon, literally less than an hour ago.
Well, it is historic. If you can see what I'm sending you now, Justin has just spoken to the crowd here on Legislative Plaza here in Nashville about the War Memorial building, a triumphant crowd, thousands of people here. This has been an historic day. Joy, you ended the show. You did my benediction for me on the show since I was cut off the other night, and you said, "Watch God work." You see Justin Fairfax here. When you said, "Watch God work," we witnessed what was really an expulsion during the weekend of the crucifixion. But as we know, truth crushed the earth will rise again. So here is the manifestation of that truth crushed earth, a resurrection. And Justin Jones called it that himself. That's exactly what this is. And so people feel jubilant just after, with the says, just after being expelled, he has now been restored. The plan is on this Thursday of this week, the Memphis City Council will gather and they will reinstate Justin Pearson. That is the plan. That is what is before us. Justin, Joy Reid says, Joy Reid, we're live with Joy Reid on MSNBC. If you want to say words, please.
Today is an important step forward for democracy, but it's not the end. That they tried to kill democracy on last Thursday, but today is a testimony of resurrection, of people power. We hope we will continue to show up here in the legislature because Cameron Sexton needs to resign. We need action for common sense gun laws. We need to support these young people who are begging for their lives. And so today is not the end, but it's the beginning. It's a testament to this movement that they cannot attack us, and we will just bow down. But we're going to stand up and rise up together.
All right.
Can you see if you can ask Representative Jones what his agenda, what will be the first item on his agenda when he gets back, Mark?
Justin. Hold it. Justin.
See if you can ask him.
Joy wants to know. Joy wants to know what's the first item on your agenda when you get back in the House?
It's a push for common sense gun legislation, red flag laws, banning these militarized guns like AR-15s, and passing universal background checks. That's what these young people are asking for, and that's what we're going to ask for. And so we're going to continue to call for common sense gun legislation. We're trying to save lives. And there's another mass shooting today in Kentucky. And so we know that this is a systemic issue that we have to address with policy. And so we will continue to fight. Are you okay? So thank you so much. We hope people will continue to pay attention to what's happening here in Tennessee because it's the spotlight of the world that has got them to not obstruct democracy today.
Amen.
Does he expect the speaker to be cooperative with him?
Do you expect this? Joy wants to know if you expect the speaker to be cooperative.
I think as long as the council here, he'll fight. Sorry, we gotta.
Okay.
But we must hold him accountable, and he must resign for his attacks on democracy. Because it was the most extreme example. What we saw Thursday was an attempt to crucify democracy. So we come here today as a testament to resurrection of democracy.
All right.
Thank you, Mark. Mark,
Joy,
stick with us, Mark. Don't go anywhere because I'm going to try to come back to you. But Holly McCall, let me bring you into this conversation. Do the Republicans in that state legislature, including the Speaker Cameron Sexton, who you just heard Justin Jones call for his resignation, do they understand what a huge error, like politics 101 mistake that they have made?
You know, this has been a catastrophic week for Tennessee Republicans and for House Speaker Cameron Sexton in particular. And I've got a source within the Republican caucus who has told me that there was an airing of grievances earlier by members who feel like Speaker Sexton misled them. They felt like expulsion was not the way to go. He was personally whipping votes, they tell me, to get this expulsion vote to go down. And then he promised the members of his caucus that these representatives, Representative Jones and Pearson, would not be seated. And as you can see, Representative Jones has been reappointed and, in fact, is back in the legislature. And we do expect the same thing will happen Wednesday with Representative Pearson. So I do think, although they will not talk about it publicly, there's an inside understanding that this has been a colossal mistake.
And do you have any reporting on how it is that they whipped the votes and then whipped one vote short for Gloria Johnson so that they themselves could create the spectacle that they let this white woman who was going to stand back side by side with these two young black men to the bitter end, and who is the one who said it was because of the color of her skin that she survived by one vote? Who's responsible for that vote whipping?
Well, I'll tell you about how Gloria Johnson survived. And let me say, she is no more alike than either of these other gentlemen. Last year, she stood for 45 minutes with her hand in the air to try to be recognized to speak on an abortion vote. However, she had two attorneys represent her. They're both white men, and they are both former members of the state legislature. And so they know that body, and they know that good old boys club. And I believe that is probably what saved her, because 7 Republicans crossed over and voted to keep her in. And I think that's because of the attorneys that are former representatives that she had working on her behalf.
David Jolly, let me bring you in here. This has been a catastrophe for the Republican Party, really nationwide. Just for Tennessee, in an average year, 1,385 people in the state die by guns. Tennessee has the 12th highest rate of gun death in the United States. The gun death rate increased 52% from 2012 to 2021 in Tennessee. It increased 39% nationwide. 1 in 25 in the United States, American kindergartners, will not make it to their 40th birthday. That is the statistics on the United States. And I'm just going to put up on the screen the top 10 states for where you are most likely to get shot dead: Mississippi, Louisiana, Wyoming, Alaska, Alabama, New Mexico, Missouri, Arkansas, Montana, South Carolina, 9 out of 10 red states. How can Republicans justify going bat crap crazy about drag shows and methodically doing zero nothing about gun violence?
30 years in bed with the gun lobby.
And then putting on this like 18th century show in Tennessee.
Yeah, look, 30 years in bed with the gun lobby and a history of homophobia and discrimination against the LGBTQ community. This is reflexive for Republicans. This is not well thought out. And, you know, there is so much to this story, Joy. We rarely get truly inspirational moments in politics, but we're watching one right now, not just as the Justins are reinstated and democracy and justice prevails, but also the thousands upon thousands of young kids in Tennessee marching to save their own lives, demanding real reform. It is a humiliating moment for Cameron Sexton. You know, when you see the Justins reinstated, I thought, who's worse at performative politics nationally now, Cameron Sexton or Ron DeSantis? Because the whole world just saw Cameron Sexton fall on his face trying to make a point around this. But nationally, what it means is the stain of Tennessee Republicans is now put on all Republicans nationwide for this reason. They've demonstrated in the last week to the country that they are wrong on gun policy, fundamentally wrong on gun policy, that they are even worse on the question of race, as they silence 2 millennial legislators of color, and that they expose their raw bias towards true democracy and representation when they silence the constituents of these members. This is a remarkable moment to define the Republican Party, and I think you're seeing people across Tennessee realize that, and they're acting with their feet and they're acting with their voice.
And to stay with you for a second, David, the thing that's remarkable, I'm sitting here watching Justin Jones hug and embrace people of all races, white, black, young, old, that are all hugging him because he's fighting for them. The thing is that this whole fight was about these 2 young black men and the 60-year-old white woman fighting harder for the children of those Republicans who literally thought that they looked great, lecturing these 2 young black legislators as if they were children. The boy was implied. And doing that on international television, like everyone could see them doing it. Did they not understand what they looked like while these guys are not fighting for just black lives, but their children? Right. And he said so. He said, I'm fighting for your kids. And he's fighting harder than Sexton was fighting for his own children.
Yeah, look, the Tennessee Three stood up to protect children across Tennessee and demand gun reform. And in this remarkable moment, Tennessee Republicans said, wait a minute, world, if you think we're really bad at guns, let us show you how much worse we are on the issue of race. I mean, consider the distraction, but I think it's important that we take time to process both those issues, because at its core, this is about protecting kids from gun violence in schools. The most helpless moment that every parent, white, black, brown, across the country experiences is the first time they drop their kids off at school and hands them off to somebody else to be their protector. And in the case of the kids that were murdered and the adults at the school in Nashville, you have 6 families in a community ripped apart because of that tragedy. You had the Tennessee 3 stand up and say, on behalf of tens of thousands of Tennesseans, you Republican supermajority in the legislature have to do something. And the Republicans' answer was, shut up and get out of the chamber.
Yeah, Mark, let me go back to you, because you are still following Justin Jones. Talk about some of the people that he is talking to, those folks that are in the gallery. Are those family members of the young folks that were out there protesting in the last couple of weeks? Can you just talk a little bit about what you're seeing? Look at this. He's being greeted now by another elder member, it looks like, of the legislature. Mark, what are you seeing?
That's actually a member of the Sergeant-at-Arms. That's actually one of the Sergeant-at-Arms here in the legislature. I'm not certain that any of those individuals are victims' families, but they're just some of his constituents who are here to greet him and support him, and he's come upstairs to greet them. So we're walking to both sides of the House gallery where the general public is seated. And as he's going in, he's just shaking hands, greeting people, and thanking them for his support. For their support.
Mark, you talk a little bit. You worked in that legislature. I think you were an aide or a page back in the day when Democrats used to control that very chamber. Just talk a little bit about your perspective in being in the state of Diane Nash and having somebody of her generation at the time fighting this particular fight on behalf of all the young people of Tennessee.
Well, first of all, you should know when we were at the city council, the Nashville City Council, they renamed the plaza, the City Council Plaza, to Diane Nash Plaza. And as I've shared before, Diane Nash was a student of his, just like Justin. She and Bernard Lafayette and John Lewis, who were at American Baptist College and Fisk and Meharry and Tennessee State, all organized. And what Justin has done is really resurrect the spirit of this movement before a different reason. And that's the diversity of it. So many young people of all colors, all faiths, all political persuasions are impacted by this. And so that's what he's here. That's what he's here to address. That's what he's here to do. And what this legislature did was really embolden this movement. Let me also just share, you mentioned this. Yes, I was a page in high school. People forget, Tennessee had 2 Democratic senators, Jim Sass and Al Gore. And Clinton carried Tennessee. Gore didn't. You know, everything started to change. Everything started to change after that. And so, you know, it's jarring to be here. Nashville's changed so much. Nashville was a small town when I left 40 years ago, almost 40 years ago. It's a big city now. And, you know, everybody's here. And these folks have taken it over because they understand it is as expensive to live in Nashville now as it is in New York, as it does the cost to live in New York. So, you know, so for him to be here in this position he's in to represent this city is very important. He's about to go back into the chamber now.
Yep. Well, I appreciate you, Mark Thompson, my friend. Yeah, everything changed after the crime bill that included an assault weapons ban, and Republicans took over a lot of chambers in the United States as well as the United States Congress. It was a sea change, and that sea change had to do with guns. Guns have driven American politics for decades, and they're driving them now in the opposite direction. David Jolly, Holly McCall, Reverend Mark Thompson, thank you all. We'll be right back.